24 hours a day. These people that are working the investigation are detectives. A lot of them are working without sleep.
And that was Bart Graves with DPS addressing news crews today about the developments in the freeway shootings investigation. Tonight we're learning more about the freeway shooting copycat suspects.
Well, one of the 18-year-olds accused of knocking out windows over the weekend says he wants people out there to know that they were not out there trying to copy what the freeway shooter's been doing. Aaron Nottingham was arrested along with two of his buddies, Albert German and Christian Cook. Police believe they used rocks and a slingshot to knock out car windows, and then they drove off. One driver, whose window was shattered, managed somehow to get the license plate of the getaway car. Investigators were able to track it back to Nottingham. They used GPS, by the way, to track his cell phone.
Those three teens and the highway shooter have all been called terrorists by the head of DPS.
Yeah, strong words when we heard DPS even using those words. But is it domestic terrorism? Tanya Mendes took that question to some leading experts.
All right, so Brandon, terrorism has to invoke mass fear, and certainly a lot of people are more afraid as they're making their way home along I-10 tonight. But is that terrorism? Maybe.
I would think what they're doing is still terrorism. They're still scaring people.
Teen terrorists, that's what these three are being called by some of the Valley's top cops. It may seem like a stretch to some of you, considering they're accused of using slingshots to fire rocks at passing cars. But former U.S. Attorney Paul Charlton says if you threaten human life and intimidate the public, you may be a terrorist under the law.
I don't think there can be any doubt that firing projectiles at moving vehicles on an interstate is dangerous to human life, and we can see that it has, in fact, intimidated the people here in Phoenix.
People have been intimidated on the roads ever since the 11 possible shootings on the freeways began. Authorities have a person of interest in custody, but are far from closing the case. Charleston says serious charges are coming.
When they catch this individual or individuals, they will be prosecuted under state terrorism laws or federal terrorism laws, and they're deserving of it.
But a leading terrorism expert at ASU isn't so quick to categorize the shootings as terrorism.
I think it dilutes the response to real terrorism.
Dr. Steve Corman says domestic terrorism has to have a political motive.
It's a little hard for me to imagine what sort of political agenda this kind of thing could serve.
Corman says it's easy to want to call a crime an act of terror because it offers a reason for the madness.
Basically, if people are terrorists, it justifies any sort of actions.
But whether what's happening is terrorism or not, the freeway shootings have certainly terrorized this town. And if that was the agenda, it's working. And the director of DPS says this is still an active investigation, so he will not be able to say at this point whether that shooter will be facing domestic terrorism charges. Reporting live, Tanya Mendes, 3TV.
Good questions. Thanks, Tanya. Last night's storm caused a lot of damage throughout the valley, including at the Phoenix VA Medical Center. Officials relocated patients, checking